Welcome back to the channel, folks. This is Jason, Certified Financial Planner and host of Fighting Words Financial. I wanted to take a quick moment here to do a short video I'm calling the No Hype XPeng Update. And I'm probably going to do this for other stocks too. I don't talk about price targets or anything like that, but I did want to talk about the decline in price for XPeng, and I would probably do that about other stocks, but really all the Chinese EV stocks right now are pretty closely related in terms of how their prices are correlated. So I'm just going to do for XPeng right now. It's been a wild ride since I made that first video on XPeng, and there's been some positive news, but quite a bit of negative news that has come out about the EV world and about Chinese stocks in general. But a lot of it doesn't really have that much to do with XPeng itself. But the stock got crushed as of late due to a variety of factors. And like I said, they don't have much to do with what XPeng is doing all on its own. So since I made my last video on XPeng, the stock rose from somewhere around $30 when I made the video all the way up to $74.49. That was coincidence, not any like genius on my part or whatever. That just happened to be when I made the video. It was right when it took that exponential curve up. Anyway, it's declined since then pretty steadily down to $49.34. So before trading starts on Monday, let's talk about the good things and the bad things that have happened in regards to Chinese EV stocks in the last couple of weeks. And before you place any trades on XPeng in the morning, the thing you should be asking yourself is, does any of this news that I'm hearing today change what I think the prospects are for this company over the next decade? Now, I'm a long-term investor. I don't know if you guys are long-term investors, but I think a lot of you are. And I really don't care very much about the day-to-day price of any individual stock in my portfolio. And to be honest with you, I don't really pay attention to the stock price that much. There's really only two occurrences in my strategy that are actually going to cause me to sell a stock, and none of them is a weekly, monthly price decline. I'm really going to think about this. If the stock has grown so much, now I have too much of it in my portfolio and it's throwing my risk parameters off, which that is not the case with XPeng. I don't hold that much of it. Or maybe there's real news that would cause me to doubt the long-term future of the company. So let's talk about what's happened. I'm going to cover the negatives first and then the positive news. And you can decide for yourself whether or not you think that the long-term prospects for this company have been impacted. All right, so beginning on November 24th, that's when the stock price slide started for XPeng. And it essentially started on no news. And the decline has been pretty steady. I think a number of factors, non-specific company factors, are contributing to this. Many folks buying the stock are younger traders that are interested in short-term profits. And the stock was up basically 300% from beginning of September to the end of November. The decline in stock price wasn't limited just to XPeng. Most electric vehicle stocks took a bath in this period. Certainly NIO did, Li did, but even a lot of the American SPAC EV stocks took a bath too. This leads me to believe that it's simply a general consolidation happening because people are taking some profits off the table after a once-in-a-lifetime run-up, and they're doing some end-of-the-year rebalancing. It wasn't until about a week later that some bad news really started coming out about the EV world in general. The sell-off was likely accelerated by the November 30th announcement that China's top economic planning body was deciding to investigate the investments and land use of a company called Evergrande Auto. Now, they're seen as a key player in the Chinese EV market, even though we don't hear about them very much on the radar here in the US. But this move doesn't seem to have anything to do with, and it doesn't seem to impact XPeng, but all of that fear of regulation appears to be contagious. But then the bad news really started to drop. On December 1st, Hindenburg Research, who absolutely dismantled Nikola earlier this year, followed up with a similar assault on the credibility and claims of Kandi Technologies. They produce some EVs that are actually sold here in the U.S. I took a look at them. They're actually pieces of junk, allegedly. Once again, this has nothing to do with XPeng, but it did drag on the share prices. Now there's a little bit of doubt about them as well. The very next day, on December 2nd, like I predicted in an earlier video, Li Auto announced that they would not be letting the share price run up go to waste, and they announced that they're issuing another 47 million shares to the public to raise cash, and which is going to dilute current shareholder equity. I think that most seasoned investors expect the other Chinese electric vehicle companies to follow, like XPeng and NIO. Also on December 2nd, the U.S. House of Representatives, and this was a double whammy all on the same day. Also on December 2nd, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill that would delist companies listed on, or Chinese companies listed on U.S. exchanges unless U.S. regulators were able to access their financial audits within the next 3 years. That's a lot of bad news in a very short period of time. But in actuality, it really doesn't have that much to do with XPeng, with the exception of delisting. And really the delisting thing is not really immediate. There's 3 years going on there where there's going to be negotiation, new laws passed, and new trade agreements that are going to be signed with China. So I think that this is a matter that will be solved in trade negotiations. And it's ultimately the trade secretary that has the final word on delisting, not Congress or the president anyway. And we're about to have a new trade secretary when we get a new administration. All of that bad news caused the market to completely ignore the good news. The EV market in China is absolutely booming, and really for XPeng, it is booming. XPeng is grabbing more than its share of the market. It's actually kind of killing it. They delivered 4,224 vehicles in November. If we can trust the numbers that they're giving us, that represents a 340% year-over-year growth in terms of deliveries. Revenues are expected to top 243% year-over-year growth, and this is despite a global pandemic. None of the bad news has affected this company, XPeng's ability to perform and grow sales in the Chinese domestic market. Now, I'm a little concerned about delisting, but to be honest, it's just a little too early to take this seriously. Remember, there's almost $2 trillion of U.S. investor wealth tied up in Chinese stocks, and much of it is actually invested through state, county, and city pension plans. There's going to be enormous amounts of pressure on, they're going to place enormous amounts of pressure through lobbying groups on Congress to find some way to compromise to keep this from happening. Anyway, folks, there it is. I just laid out the positives. I laid out the negatives. I leave it up to you to decide, what to do. I'm telling you, though, that I'm probably not going to change anything. But that, to be honest with you, is not abnormal for me. I don't react to news by buying or selling stock. I will be adding to my XPeng position over time, but that's a matter of course. I'm adding to my investments every month. Anyway, folks, these are just my thoughts. You can feel free to tell me how wrong you think I am in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.